Okay, I just came back from a restaurant, doing some prep work, and uh, and I was wondering, um, on the way back, I'm thinking to myself, okay, uh, obviously what I'm doing is not what professional traders do. So I posed this question to myself. I posed this question. I asked myself, okay, so if I am trading as a novice, then how do professionals trade? And if professionals are trading that way, then I can trade that way. So it seems to me um, a higher credibility in trading is achieved by essentially what's happening is higher credibility in trading is achieved by creating uh, a repertoire of known setups. Okay, so when I have a known setup, okay, that I can use, then I can use that as a template to look for it. Oh yeah. Hmm. Because what because what it will do, essentially what it will do is that a setup is not fully formed until it's formed, right? And so in order for me to get a better picture of how it's going to unfold, then what I need to do is create um, what I need to do is create a so what I need to do is create. I have to create a scenario where I have to create a scenario where I have to create a scenario where uh, so I have a picture of what a perfect ideal setup is. I have to create a perfect scenario of I have to create an ideal setup. Okay, ideal setup of a particular setup. All right, but what happens is that the setups will vary. It will not be exactly the same. Exactly the same. It won't be. It varies. It's slightly skewed. One side is a little higher, one side is a little lower, or it behaves slightly different. It and also the candles are a little bit bigger. Some candles are smaller. Some candles are, instead of being green, it's red. Sometimes so it switches around. But but generally speaking, the setup maintains its main interest as a definition of that particular setup. So, for instance, if when there's a break and retest condition, it's going to go up and it's going to bring down. It's going to bounce off that support again that it broke through, and then it's going to move back up. But it can vary. It can be wider. It could be shorter. It could be. Uh, I mean, there could be that movement could be. It doesn't have to be parabolic. It could be. It could be shaped in a totally different way, and the magnitude could be different. The bounce up and bounce back, and maybe it doesn't straight bounce right at where the arrow is. Maybe it drops down. So there is some variability. There is a variability to a setup that I need to be able to recognize. So when I look at this chart, I have to be able to say, oh, that looks very similar to it. It fits the criteria of it. It meets 95% of the setup that I have in mind, but even though it's skewed a little bit, even though it's 95% different, it'll most likely behave. It'll most likely unfold in a manner that I'm perceiving it to be. And so what I have to do is when I see something, I have to say to myself, okay, it's not perfectly ideal. It's not an ideal setup, but it is very similar to it, and that's why there's a different there. That's why there is a variability in the grade of when I look at it. So when I look at it, okay, so is this a break and retest or is it just straight going down? So it's gonna be a D setup. But if it meets 95% of what the criteria is for a break and retest setup, then it's an A plus setup, right? That is the definition of an A plus setup, right? Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I wrong? What's going on? But it doesn't mean that it is 100% dot to dot, point to point, the magnitude, linearity between how it is. It varies a little bit. And so that's why there's a variability. And so if I'm trying to determine whether it's going to be a break and retest, it's like 80% match. Okay, because I can't fully tell because it hasn't been formed. It hasn't formed yet. I look at it, possibly it's going to do it, and I have my mind as picturing it, and I'm extrapolating it to see how it's going to fit. The criterias and criterias leading up to the break and retest is if it's 95 or 100% accurate, then it's going to be a A plus setup. But so I have to create this picture of how something unfolds in my mind and project it to see what's going to happen in the future, right? So that I have to define an ideal setup, and then I can use that ideal setup to extrapolate and see how it works, right? How does it fit? How does it fit into here and here and here and here, right? And then how it's going to unfold. That tells me how that's going to work. Does that make sense? I was thinking of something else. But the reality is, what's happening is, I have to create I have to have an ideal setup, and then I have to look at what the chart is doing. What is the price action doing, and does that price action match with the ideal setup? And if the price action is matching up with the ideal setup, to what degree is it matching up? If it's matching up to A plus kind of a setup, if it's matching up to be A plus setup, then that's an A plus setup, and I can take it, and chances are I can go big with that, right? Yeah.